Okay, so if everybody can choose mute on your line so that we don't have any background noise, that'd be great. Okay. Okay. So thank you guys for jumping on here and participating with this Tower Garden Tower Talk, as Jill likes to call it. And I know, you know, Tower Garden has been a big piece of our business, and it's obviously been a growing piece of what we're doing, and it's really drawing a lot of attention to our company. And as we've done our Voxer chats and stuff, I'm getting a lot of questions about what we're doing here with Tower Gardens in the schools. And it's something that's been super exciting to us here, and I would love to see you guys take this and turn it around in your own communities and your own schools. So we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as I can, and then what we're going to do as soon as I'm done sharing what I have to share, we're going to open it up for question and answer. So I did mute everybody out just to rule out the background noise, and I'll unmute those lines as soon as I'm done so you guys can ask your question. So I just want to thank you, first of all, for taking the time to listen. I am going to be really honest. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not one that really loves to be the center of attention or to do video chats, to be honest. But what we have here and what we've been accomplishing is just too important not to share. So we have been working with the schools here in Texas for the last year and a half in getting Tower Gardens in. And it started very small. And we started with one elementary school and 3 towers, and now we're in our 3rd campus with 3 towers in each. We have one in an elementary, one in middle school, and one in our high school. And now we're working with our district in a district-wide greenhouse that they're creating that encompasses pretty much every form of farming that you can do. Everything from aeroponics to hydroponics to fishponics, everything. So we're really excited about that. And so what I want to share with you guys is how we're doing this and how it can be done in your communities. And I know that there's a little bit of fear wrapped around Tower Garden and schools and how do I approach it and all of that. So I want to dispel a little bit of that for you guys today. The first thing, like any project, where do you start? The key piece with Tower Gardens and getting them into the schools is finding a passionate teacher or administrator. Ultimately, what it really comes down to is the teachers, though, because even though the administration can be fascinated and really excited about it, it's going to come down to the teachers that are dealing with it day in and day out. So finding that teacher, whether it's through somebody that you know in particular with your students or your children that are in school, grandchildren, whatever, or if it's just you have a friend that's a teacher. However that looks like for you is what you want to do. How passionate they are and if they're willing to take it on is ultimately going to be whether it's successful in your school or not. So develop relationships. That's something, for me, I took on a little too much this year, but with my children in elementary and middle school, I decided to get more involved this year than I had been in the past and volunteered with our PTO, actually took on board positions. But there are so many ways that you can be involved in the schools. Even for those of you that work full-time that maybe can't do during the day, there are lots of volunteer opportunities to help out in different capacities with your school districts. I would encourage you to get involved in some form or fashion to develop those relationships with the teachers and the administration that you need. That's been a big piece of it for me. However, even if you don't have the time to volunteer or the connections, social media is a fantastic tool. One of the private schools that I was working with last year actually found me over Facebook. What I was doing is just sharing my own Tower Garden pictures and what we had growing, little tidbits just on Facebook. And they came to me and said, we're interested in starting a garden, you know, help us. What can we do? How do we do this? So definitely use social media to your biggest advantage. Also, be very vocal and purposeful in how you share your tower garden. If you have the capability of putting it in your front yard, put it in your front yard. My husband wouldn't let me do that. So we share it through pictures. And I think Emily Pogue actually, I want to say last year maybe, said something about a yard sale, and she set hers out on her driveway while she was having a yard sale. Something like that. Somebody be very, very visual and sharing about what you're doing. Don't hesitate to look up community garden clubs and things like that. Just because we're not growing in the dirt doesn't mean we don't have a garden. So just be very visual and very verbal in sharing what you're doing and how cool your garden is. Because that's what's going to draw people in. And while they may not be teachers, they may know people. And it literally is word of mouth, like everything that we do with our business. Now, the second piece, once you find that interested teacher or administrator, is getting in front of them, right? Setting a meeting, setting an appointment to sit down and talk with them and really get to the nuts and bolts about how to integrate it and if they're interested in making it a part of their curriculum in their school. First thing you want to do when you set that meeting is don't go in with a sales pitch. Be very personal and be real with people, okay? And what I mean by that, obviously go in prepared. You want to go in with all of the information, links to YouTube videos or CDs, DVDs, whatever it is you want to give them, printed information. There are some things that I'm going to share with you that you do need to take with you. So be prepared. But when I go in, I literally make it a discussion with the administration and the teachers that I'm talking to. I first share with them what Tower Garden is. I usually use the time-lapse video that's on our YouTube channel, as well as the how it works. I really like the little dry erase board one where the guy's drawing really fast with a dry erase marker. I use those. And so I give them a very brief, I'm talking 10 minutes or less, nutshell what Tower Garden is. And then I open it up to a discussion. Let them ask their questions that they have based on the information you've just given them. And then I always lead off after their questions with, how do you see this becoming a part of your curriculum or your campus? How do you see this being utilized in your school? And really let them kind of direct the conversation there. Because as much as we want it for them, they have to see it and they have to be willing to integrate it for it to be successful. So really have a discussion there. And this is where you want to come in prepared ahead of time with prices and things like that. And so you do definitely want to go in, because that's always what it's going to come down to is the nuts and bolts. What's it going to cost me and how are we going to pay for it? So go in with your order forms and your prices and have that ready for them so that you can answer those questions without stumbling over, what it's going to cost. So there is some things, and I'm going to show you where to find the order form. Corporate actually has created a specific order form and order process for the schools. So I'm going to show you where that is. Also, when you're chatting with them, with the schools, make sure that what they can grow and the price is not the only thing you cover. Tower Garden is so much more than just a garden because of the resources that accompany it. I'm going to go to screen share here for just a second, and I want to show you guys, for those of you that don't have tower gardens of your own, you may not have seen this yet, but this is our Tower Talk. So for those of you that do have tower gardens, and this is available to distributors as well, even if you do not have a tower garden, you can get a login for Tower Talk. And what this is it's a great resource for not just teachers, anybody who owns a tower garden. But here's the piece that I want to show you. When you log into Tower Talk, and this is something they get when they purchase their tower garden, you click on this Growing Young Minds. And this is a huge piece for our teachers, and is the curriculum resources that have been developed not only by corporate, but through Seton Hall. And you'll see these lesson plans right here on the side. Let me see if I can move this. You will see these little lesson plans right here on the side for Seton Hall and the different things that they can click on. These are completely downloadable. It doesn't cost them a penny. Not only that, but there are these educator resources with the Tower Garden Challenge, which is the first curriculum that corporate developed with the Buck Institute for Education. And then this link right here, How to Grow a School Garden. is a fantastic resource because it links to Stephen Ritz and the Green Bronx Machine in Bronx, New York, with everything that they're doing and how he makes his work. It's got lots of questions and answers. Excuse me. Common things that you need to cover with educators and administrators on how to implement it into their curriculum in their classrooms. So it's a fantastic tool for Tower Talk. So you want to make sure, if you as a distributor don't have your own Tower Garden, you want to make sure that you find out how to get your Tower Talk login. That I don't know because they created that after I already had one. So I would just contact your sponsor or distributor support to find that out. So let me, okay, go back. The other piece is, once you shared these resources with them, the order forms is one of the main thing that you want. And so your order forms are going to be found in your office, under your resource tab, under forms and resources. You can see as, oh really? Okay. So it's under forms and resources, and if you scroll down to the Tower Garden, it says Tower Garden materials. You'll see it, it says placing Tower Garden order for schools. It's a downloadable form. Just click on it, download the PDF, and it has the bundles for you to see for the school bundle. And I'm going to pull up, hold on one second. I'm going to pull up the form so that you can see what it looks like here. Okay. So this is what the how to place a Tower Garden or school order form looks like. It has the instructions on the first page, and then when you scroll down, the next 2 pages are the actual order form. And if you've seen the personal one, it looks similar, but their bundles are named something different. And this is specifically designed for everything that the schools will need. It also already has in the built-in discounts for shipping and things like that. So that's where you're going to find that order form, is on your virtual office. What I like to do whenever I go into the schools, I take that order form with me, but what I also do is just work up a mock order of what their order might look like depending on what I think they may be interested in. And I give them 4 breakdowns: inside growing and outside growing, 1 tower versus 3 towers for each of those options. The reason I do that, corporate gives us a discount whenever we do the bundle of the 3 towers or the family garden towers, or I think it's called the science lab bundle on the school form. So it actually, if you do the math, it's not cost effective for them to order 2 towers. And I really encourage people and administrators, either do 1 or do 3. If you want to start out small, start out with 1, and then we can add 3 more later. But for your benefit, it's just not financially responsible for me to suggest you purchasing 2, simply because the cost per tower is just much higher. So be real with people. The other piece to that is, if this is not something that you've done before, if you don't personally have a Tower Garden, or maybe you have a Tower Garden and your school's wanting to grow indoors, but you've never done that before, don't pretend with people. Go in being completely honest. They will appreciate it, I promise. Before this, I had never grown with grow lights. I had never grown indoors, had no clue what I was doing. The way I approached it, though, when I talked to the teachers, was that we were going to be learning this together. I was in this with them 100%. And I was a resource. So whenever I pitched this to our teachers and went in to talk with them, I let them know that along with everything, all of the resources they're getting online, they're also getting me. I chose to commit an hour a week of my time for the first few months to get them started. And once they got on their feet with it and got growing, then I cut that back to an hour a month. And now that we're, kind of been through it almost a year, it's actually a lot less than that. I just check on them through text message with the teachers or email. And if they need me to pop in, I pop in. And if they don't, then I stay back and I let them handle it. So it's definitely something that you want to continue to build those relationships with, but make sure that you make yourself known as a resource, because they are buying you essentially. So be sure that you can back that up, and be honest with your time commitment. If you can't commit an hour a week when they first get started, don't offer that. If you can only commit an hour a month, or you can be there to help set up or whatever, be honest with them. Honesty is so much more appreciated than pretending to know what we're talking about, and then having to backtrack later. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I really don't know how that's going to work. But you know what? I know who to ask. I'll find the answer for you. Now, the last piece, and this is probably the hardest push topic, is funding. Once they say yes, and once they're excited and they want their 3 towers or 6 towers or whatever it is, how do we pay for it? Lots of options. The first one being, and this is how we funded the first 2 of our 3 campuses, parent organizations. We're very blessed here in Texas. Most of our parent organizations have very large budgets, multiple tens of thousands of dollars, so it's not a big deal for us. I know other communities are not as fortunate, so there are lots of different options. Parent organizations are the first place I'd start. It's where we've started. The other thing you can do is community fundraisers or donations. Corporate sponsors have also been a big piece of it. For some of our private schools that don't have a large parent base, they've chosen corporate sponsors. And what I mean by that is usually it's your local small businesses, not places like Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, the big franchises. It's going to be your local hometown one-owner businesses that are going to contribute to these projects. And what we did, is just find these corporate sponsors, and then we recognize them through either a banner or a plaque for the gardens that they were contributing for. And the final piece, I know there's a lot of grants and things out there. Absolutely, you can research those. There's tons. If you just Google it, you'll find more than you probably want. If you have to do that route, it's definitely better than nothing. But I'll be honest with you, it's a long, drawn-out process. It's very labor-intensive, and then it's not even guaranteed once you put forth all the effort. So kind of gauge it how you feel is best for your community and your school. But one thing that you will need is there is a lot of Title I schools, which means that their ratings are low, and so they get more government money. One thing that you will have to have, no matter what school district you're in, no matter what state you're in, is something called sole source vendor approval. And what you want to do is reach out to your district or your principal of the campus that you're talking to. They'll know who you need to speak with. Each district has an approved list of vendors. So if a campus wants to spend budgeted money, for example, Title I funds, on a tower garden, you have to be on that district's approved list of vendors. The great thing is you don't have to fill out this paperwork. If you just contact the district's department, have them send you the vendor packet, and then you forward that into our corporate office, Tower Garden. Holly is our school's, she handles all of our school orders. She's fantastic. I have worked with her numerous hours on numerous things for our schools in doing this very process, as well as some other things. And she's fantastic. They have everything that you need. You just send it into them. They fill it all out and email it back to you. You print it out and turn it in. It could not be more simple. Our corporate staff is fantastic. So that is a key piece, especially for those of you that are in maybe lower income areas where your parent organizations aren't an option. To be able to use those school budgeted funds, you want that sole source vendor qualification. The last piece is closing the sale. Follow-up, I could not stress follow-up more. I know we always say the fortune's in the follow-up, but I will tell you, my first elementary school, it took me over a year of continuous, and if I'd been more persistent earlier on, it probably would have happened sooner, but I didn't want to be the pushy one, right? So continue to follow up in person, via email, text message, whatever is the preferred communication method for your contacts. Don't give up, because it's most of the time, it's not that they're not interested. They're just trying to figure out some of these stumbling blocks. So be there to walk them through that process and make suggestions and encourage them. All right, I think I've covered a lot, and I know I've talked a little bit longer than I wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute the lines, and you guys can feel free to ask questions. Give me 1 second. Unmute. Okay. I have unmuted. So if you all have questions, I am going to try to answer them if I can. So feel free to go ahead and shoot. I talk really fast, so you guys may not have gotten the other thing. And if you didn't, I know, sometimes being put on the spot with questions. So if there's anything, so just feel free to interrupt me if I'm still talking. Crickets? Really? Nobody has questions? I'm not that good. I had to have left something out.
Are you trying to teach them how to start from in the pack to start your seedlings, etc.? Or are you doing like directly into the tower garden? Are you trying to show them just by the steps that are shown, or you trying to show them like either way can work if they try to put the tower garden in the...
Are you talking about planting, Jessica?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so it depends on what they want. I have had several schools, most of them want to start from seed, especially when they're incorporating it into their science curriculum. They want to start from seed, so we start the seedlings there. I have had some of them, though. I have a private school that works with autistic children that planting is really difficult for them, just because of the kids' special needs. So they choose to order seedlings from Living Towers is typically who I use. There are multiple seedling providers that you can find on towergarden.com. It just really depends on what their needs are and what they choose for an expense. The seeds are definitely a cheaper option when you go for planting. But if they're looking for something that they can harvest sooner and they want to spend the extra few dollars on seedlings, then they can go that route too. It just really depends on what their needs are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Heidi, I have a question. So when you're doing a GoFundMe or setting up, helping the school budget for what they're going to need to get started, like I'm doing that right now for a school, what do you include in their first budgeting besides the tower gardens? Do you order extra tonic, and how much do you recommend that they allow for that?
So what I typically do, and personally, you mentioned GoFundMe. I wouldn't recommend the GoFundMe just because they take a portion of the money. I think there's a few better options out there for those, so I'm just going to touch that real quick.
Okay.
But as far as like the bundles that they order, what I typically recommend for most schools is that they go ahead and order, obviously, the support cage, the wheels, depending on where they're placing it, but most of the time they're going to need the wheels because of transitioning from classrooms and, summer storage and things like that. So the dolly, definitely the rock wool, the tonic are the pieces that I add in. Because what I like to tell them is if they order all of those things, it gives them enough supplies for them to grow within their first full year without needing additional supplies. So, because the last thing, especially if you're coming from a donation standpoint, you don't want to ask for this huge chunk of money, and then 4 or 5 months later, you have to ask for another couple $100s to purchase more supplies. So we try to get it all packaged in the very first order so that it's a one-shot deal. And then if you've dealt with the towers, the maintenance on them is virtually nothing. I usually tell people it's about $100 per tower per year is your maintenance for rock wool and tonic and your pH. So yeah, I try to encompass all of that: the rock wool, the tonic, the support cage, and the dolly, all in that very first order. If they're doing 3 towers, then I make sure it corresponds with the 3. If they're just doing 1, you can figure that out based on the order form. But yes, you want to try to get them set up for a year of growing from the get-go so that they don't feel like being nibbled behind to death.
Okay, one more question. Thank you for that. What about summer school programs? Have you been using the Tower Gardens in summer school programs and seedlings versus the sprouting because of the short span? I know here in Missouri, our summer schools are only like 6 or 7 weeks long.
I have not used it with a summer school program yet, simply because we started this fall was our first start with the schools. So we haven't even had the opportunity, but our schools work, I know, very different than Missouri's as far as summer school programs go. So we don't have the opportunity right now this summer to work with any. Summer school programs typically are really short, so I would probably suggest doing seedlings versus seeds unless you're doing herbs and lettuces, because those sprout so quickly. You could probably get away with doing those from seed. But if they're wanting to do things, peppers and green beans and that type of stuff, I would start with the seedlings.
Okay. This has been so informational. This is amazing. Thank you so much, Heidi.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to do it, and I'm glad. I hope you guys are getting something out of it, because I'll tell you, it's been getting one school on board fires up the rest. So getting your foot in the door really opens up so many more doors, because once you have one school on board, it's so easy to say, well, we've accomplished this with this campus. How do you see it fitting into yours? This is how they're using it. What do you want to do? And it's kind of like almost like a guilt trip, honestly. Like, don't be that one campus that doesn't have it kind of thing. And so it's hard, a little healthy competition between our campuses. So just getting that in, because everybody wants to be the first. So getting that in, and make sure when you get these in with the schools that you utilize your local media. I'm not talking television stations, but if you brought in, when we got it into our first elementary school, we did send a write-up to our local kind of our equivalent of the Daily Journal, and had them do a little piece on the green technology and what Williams was doing, and that they were the first in our school district to have this technology. And man, did that spur some competition between those principals, because they wanted to be in on it. They didn't want to be left behind. So yeah, absolutely. All right. I have like maybe 2 more minutes for more questions, and then Zoom is going to cut me off. So if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and speak up now. I really appreciate you guys taking your lunch hour to participate with this and in the questions that have been asked. I hope this has been as helpful to you guys as it has been for me going through the process and learning this first meeting.
I gotta go get lunch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica. Well, as everybody's starting to pull off here, I know I'm just going to go ahead and stop our recording. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to email or Vox for me.